There we go. All right, let's try that again. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another stream. I am Daniel Dewey, and hope you're ready for another day of getting stuff to work. Anyway, so as always, I am trying to actually build out or write Ansible stuff for OpenStack. Last time, I was actually able to get Keystone up and running, and I did a little bit of tweaking behind the scenes because I realized I didn't have it properly restart the service if the configuration were to change, but we fixed that, or I fixed that behind the scenes. But Keystone is working, and that's great news. So actually next up is to, as you can see right here, I've got in front of me the minimal deployment for OpenStack, and that is should be Queens, going to be doing Glance next. So as always, feel free to go ahead and if you got any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to hit up on the chat. I've got some stuff set up so I can pay attention to that a little bit more. Feel free to ask away. And as always, if you want to catch up on what I'm doing, feel free to hit the links down below. I got my LinkedIn, got my have my blog up there. It's a little bit behind, but I am working on some architecture documentation to start giving a better idea as to what it is I'm ultimately trying to build up. So that'll be on its way, and as soon as it's up and ready for you guys to go ahead and take a look, I'll be hitting up my LinkedIn and my Twitter. And I'll of course mention it the very next stream. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Why does my screen not show up here? Uh-oh. I should have a screen. What's going on? Why is this broke? Editor. Uh-oh. What happened? Video capture device. Well, it sees it. I just don't see it on the video going out. What is going on? Oh, I know what's going on. Haha. I don't know why I turned off hidden. Anyway, so there we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, there highlighted is the Glance installation we're going to do. We're actually going to open up a tab for that, but we're actually going to do that in just a sec. It looks like I already have it. So first what I'd like to do, and to help validate that Keystone is up and working, is we need to create the domain project users and roles. So we should be able to get that knocked out fairly quickly. And then oh, that's right. We need at some point we're going to need these scripts for for any client on the command line to be able to authenticate, log in, and ultimately actually send commands back to OpenStack. What I might do, I might put this particular step off a little bit. The reason being is because I should be able to know all of this stuff. It'll be stored in Ansible, so at least, because the whole point is to have Ansible do this stuff. But I'll leave this open for reference in case I need to do anything manually during actual development. Yeah, if we can, so once we create domain, project, users, and roles, we can then actually go ahead and head off to the next step, which is actually deploying Glance. Excuse me. One sec. Had a little something in my throat. Sorry about that. So anyway, let's get this prepared because we're going to want this to set up Glance. And let's get started on this. So the way I'm going to work this is actually this guy is not going to be part of the Keystone Ansible role. Instead, he will be actually a new role, one that actually maybe less of a role, more of a playbook. The reason being is because these should be a one-time thing. Now, one thing I would like to test, however, is Ansible actually has some pretty nice built-in OpenStack stuff that I'd like to give a try. Let's pull that up for reference. That's not it. That is definitely not it. Cloud modules. And then let's do a search for OpenStack. Oh, there it is. There we go. So we got the domain. I don't see a project. So, well, let's just dig in and we'll figure it out as we go. So just give a basic quick look. So the ideally what I'd like to do, if it can be a role where I can simply pass in like, oh, I need to create a new domain, or hey, I need to create a new user until I get single sign-on up and running. We could make that an actual role in of itself, as long as these are idempotent. If these turn out not to be idempotent, which they really should, Ansible's usually pretty good at actually keeping that kind of stuff out, then we can keep it in there. If it's not idempotent, we'll have it as a single run playbook and move right along. So let me, okay, that should be done. I don't need to worry about that. All right, so let's first make sure that I have my my primary infrastructure up and running. So I don't think I've ever explained this. So actually what I have set up is there's two main things to watch out for inside my projects directory. There's an Ansible directory, and way over here is the Vagrant directory. There's a bunch of stuff in between, but they're for various other things. What's important, at least for this session, is actually these two directories right here. Specifically, Vagrant. Let me do a global status real quick. The Vagrant directory I have set up as a kind of pseudo mini environment that I can actually have Ansible test things against. That's especially in the case for the Pulp server, which is so that I'm not hitting the internet. I actually have a local cache of all the repositories I use during development. The next thing I actually have up and running is a FreeIPA server. Now, for those who don't know, FreeIPA is IPA, if I remember right, is Identity, Policy, and Audit. This is actually an upstream open source project made by Red Hat. I'm not sure if it started at Red Hat, but Red Hat now owns it, and Red Hat sells it as for support as I think it's Identity Service or something along those lines. Anyway, I'm actually using FreeIPA in my environment as a central authentication, very much similar to actually Microsoft Active Directory. FreeIPA can be that Active Directory, secure with Kerberos, single sign-on, shared directories, and so on, or auto mount home directories, but for Linux. And then what's nice is that they do actually allow some integration with Active Directory. So if you already have Active Directory stood up, instead of having Linux simply point at more Active Directory stuff, you can actually have FreeIPA handle and cache authentication on behalf of Active Directory, as well as help setups and fine-tune stuff that's Linux specific that Windows or Microsoft AD can't necessarily handle, or can handle it, but in a much more complicated and less intuitive way. In my humble opinion, which you don't have to agree with, that's fine. But that's, in my experience, that's kind of how I've interacted with it. Part of that may just be security in general, a necessary evil. So that's this one. And then actually, you probably have noticed these 4 machines here, the auth environment. I'm actually using that specifically as a way to actually have, that's simply a remnant really, but it's my way of being able to test, or was my way to test, to make sure that I had the auto mount home directory set up and working, that the single sign-on was working, etc. So this one and this one are going to be our two main things. Now, the nice thing is they're already built. So if I go into the Pulp server, oh, I need to be in Vagrant first. Vagrant, Pulp server, Vagrant up. Let's rename, I'm using Tmux. Let's rename this window as Pulp server. And then, oh wow, I didn't realize I was still using the outside Vagrant version or Vagrant box of CentOS. I'll have to look at that. Not this session though. So while that's standing up, let's come back and create a new session. Projects, Vagrant, and then for a PA server, we'll do a Vagrant up. Let that start running, and then let's rename this window as free IPA -server. That way I know what that is. And while I'm waiting for these to come up, let's go ahead and pull up my Ansible directory. Let's go into OpenStack. And actually, I'm thinking what I would like to do is create a new directory to set up those projects and domains. The thing I'm wrestling around with is, do I want to create a new actual molecule role? You know what? Let's do this for testing purposes, since we're really just doing this for testing. Let's just open Keystone, open code. While we're here, let's go back in my history, source bin activate. I do every directory is a micro, a little micro project in of itself, self-contained, specifically to keep it away from whatever may happen to the actual my machine here. I don't want the machine and the project to collide where I'm having versioning issues. So we source that. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. Let's check back in. That's the auth environment. I don't have to worry about that. All right, so Pulp server and the free IPA server are up. Let me make sure that free IPA is actually up, because for some reason, the last time I started this, list units, free IPA didn't start. It had an error. All right, looks like it started, so we should be good. Let's get out of that. All right, let's jump back over to Keystone. And I think the way I want to handle this is the nice thing is all this is source control, so I can do what I want and just revert, and I'm back where I left off. I think the thing I want to do is, let's look at main. Let's do it this way. Let's create a new task file. We're going to call this Keystone Setup Test.yaml. With this here, as always, YAML has to start with 3 dashes and a new line. Here, we'll add another include right here, or we'll add include tasks. There it is. Include tasks. Keystone setup test.yaml. I think that's how that works. We'll see. And then that way it'll just add these tasks at the end after Keystone's up and running, and then we can actually go and do what we need to do. So first things first, let's go back to our document, and they want to create a domain. So let's go ahead and create that domain. So I believe this is actually the right domain, or the right Keystone domain. If I remember right, it was domain facts. Retrieve facts about one or more OpenStack domains. Since we don't have it yet, I don't think we need that. Create, update, delete OpenStack identity domains. If a domain with the supplied name already exists, it will be updated with the new description and enabled attributes. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and take a look at how we just simply create a very simple domain. OS keystone underscore domain. Let's go ahead and put these side by side so that I can reference and type and make sure I'm not doing anything silly. All right, so name, create bogus domain. Oh, not that. And then OS keystone domain. More than likely, and I'll find this out when Ansible runs, more than likely there's another Python package that needs to get downloaded for this guy. But we'll find out when we get there. So, cloud is my cloud. What is the cloud value? Those are return values. I don't need return values. I need the cloud. Named cloud or cloud config to operate against. If cloud is a string, it references a named cloud config as defined in an OpenStack clouds.yaml file. Provides default values for auth and auth type. This parameter is not needed if auth is provided or if OpenStack OS environment variables are present. If cloud is addicted, contains a complete cloud like Alright, well, I suspected this. What are we doing? Good question. Alright, so we are actually we've set up an Ansible. I have an Ansible role specifically for OpenStack Keystone. With that role, in a previous stream we got it up and working. So now what I'm doing here is kind of a semi-learning thing and trying to figure out how does Ansible interact with OpenStack in terms of how do I tell, and also to make sure it's idempotent as well, is how do I tell Ansible create these OpenStack domain projects, whatever, and then from there, once I've confirmed that they are or are not idempotent, in the future I will look at probably creating a role or a simple playbook in order to set those up. Once I have validated this, I will actually move on to and actually running through this documentation here and Ansibilizing it. I will actually be looking into configuring the Glance service next. The overall goal is to try and I'm writing my own Ansible for learning practices, but also so that I'm not maintaining other people's code. But we are once these are actually set up, I've got some boxes down in the basement that I'm going to deploy with Ansible. Good question. So here's the grand scheme. So first, I'm going to have OpenStack as my cloud hypervisor on physical hardware. Eventually, I'm going to put OpenShift, which is effectively Kubernetes Enterprise by Red Hat. Once that's on top, I now have a virtual machine layer and a container layer that I can use. And then from there, I'm going to use that new cloud setup in order to do other projects that I've had in mind, including but not limited to machine learning, web development, as well as some kind of day-to-day house services that I'd like to set up, including Plex, an Arc server, Minecraft server, what have you. Definitely way above and beyond what I need in order to actually set those things up, but it's all part of the learning experience in trying to set up these DevOps type things. The idea is once this is up, I now have infrastructure, or the infrastructure as code needed to redeploy if I need to expand the cluster, just be able to just repeatedly do these things. Automation at its finest, honestly. And then just continue personal projects at will. Um, but yeah, thanks for the questions. I'm glad I was able to quickly cover that. It's a big thing. But I do have a blog down below. Doesn't it quite explain what I'm doing yet, but I'm actually in the middle of documentation. Uh, uh, I am actually in the middle of writing some documentation with some diagrams in order to help fully explain the grand vision. Do you have any IoT projects? Not really. I think that's something I'd like to eventually get into. I'm honestly, my personal view is I'm a little conflicted about kind of the whole everything connected to the internet concept, just because of combination of my internet's not the most stable all the time. And I don't want to be dead in the water when the internet eventually goes. At the same time, I'm a little overly, I would consider myself a little overly security conscious, so I don't like my data being out there. Um, so if you're wondering, I'm not buying the Amazon microwave. Anyway, uh, Alexa, nuke my hot dog. Oh, nice. I'd be interested actually to know what kind of projects you got, or what your current project is. Um, but just out of curiosity and some ideas of my own, because I'm relatively new in the IoT space, but I do like the whole uh, container cloud dynamic concept that has been sprouting currently. So yeah, that's what I'm building towards. It's and building up and out. Temperature cooling through Google Cloud. Oh, nice. So I kind of like your own personal Nest. I would hazard a guess. Um, or Nest like. Um, household. Yep. Okay. Yeah, actually, one idea that I would like to look into is there's a Python project that can run on Raspberry Pis, but can actually run as containers as well, called Home Assistant, and it's effectively the whole smart household thing where you can hook in your thermostat, your Plex, your various Raspberry Pi, yeah. You can actually go and hook in Google Assistant and Alexa, what have you, so that you actually have a smart home. The nice thing is that if the internet goes down, if you're using Google as your or Alexa as your interface, then the only thing you're losing is the your ability to control with your voice. But um, that's actually one project I do want to eventually look into is the home assistant and getting a relatively self-sustaining smart house setup. Um, but yeah, that's cool. Awesome. I like to hear that. It's great to hear what other people are working on. Um, all right, so currently we need to figure out how to pass OpenStack credentials into uh, so that Ansible can use it. I'm looking at the modules, and that doesn't look like they actually have anything that I can necessarily hardcode. Let's go back to the OS Keystone domain. Let's look at that cloud description again. Named cloud or cloud config to operate against. If cloud is a string, it references a named cloud config as defined in an OpenStack clouds.yaml file. Provides default values for auth and auth type. This parameter is not needed if auth is provided. Is there auth? Dictionary containing auth information is needed by the cloud's auth plugin strategy. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. If the for other plugins, this parameter will need to obtain whatever parameters that auth requires. I really wish they actually provided. Oh wait, what's this? Aha! Notes. What a concept. All right, the standard OpenStack environment variables such as OS username may be used instead of providing explicit values. Auth information is driven by OS client config, which means that values can come from a YAML config file in etc ansible openstack.yaml, etc openstack clouds.yaml, or .config openstack clouds.yaml. Then from standard environment variables, then finally by explicit parameters in place. More information can be found at OS client config. Did I miss that? I did. How did I miss that? All right. OS client config. Get OpenStack client config. Get OpenStack client config data from clouds.yaml or environment. Below requirements are needed on the host that executes this module. Clouds. List of clouds to limit the return list to no value, blah, blah, blah. Facts are placed in the OpenStack.clouds variable. Get list of clouds that do not support security groups. Okay. Get the information back. Kind of wish I had an example. I wish they had actually provided an example as to what those. In my case, it's going to be the clouds.yaml file. What does a clouds.yaml file look like? I'm just a noob with some knowledge, but the firm wants to train to a serious full stack dev for reasons unknown. Huh. Firm wants to train in a serious one, just clearing and sucking information. That's honestly the whole point of this. The way I look at this stream, honestly, is a couple things. One is it gives. I'm doing this project one way or another. So I figure let me just use the time to actually kind of record and show the world how my thought process is, and in the meantime turn it into a learning opportunity. And honestly, kind of extreme programming, the concept of extreme programming at its most extreme. It just I'm here presenting in front of a bunch of people, and I'm hoping that people learn from this and potentially also contribute, and it turns into just a giant learning session for all. But by all means, yeah, just enjoy. If you got questions, feel free to ask them. Looks like I might be reaching my red zone on my mic. Let me turn that down a bit so I'm not blasting you all out. All right. Hopefully that'll work. I'm staying within yellow. Just do a little bit more. All right. That should work. All right. So sorry. Don't adjust too much, but I'm done adjusting my mic, so I shouldn't be blasting you out of the room or accidentally clipping. But yeah, by all means, feel free to just, if all you're doing is listening, that's fine. If you'd like to contribute, participate, whatever works. It's the sharing of information. All right, so client config. How are we doing client config? So they're saying get the information back just about the Mordred cloud OS client config clouds Mordred. All right, so they really don't tell me what this cloud well, time for the old Google. Clouds.yaml. Ansible OpenStack clouds.yaml. What do they got? What do they got? Ooh, is this an example? Aha. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Why are you going off? Oh. Let's see. This is. Oh, I see what they did. Oh, this is the official OpenStack repo. Cool. All right, so we got OpenStack, Ansible, OpenStack, OpenRC templates, clouds.yaml.j2. This is a good idea. This would be actually very nice to have where when Keystone has actually finished standing up, that it goes and provides the clouds.yaml that I can then pull over and use for future future Ansibleizing. All right. You know what? I like that idea. I'm gonna have to put it on the back burner though. So, we know some set values. Let me do this. Let me put a bit of a note here. Generate clouds.yaml.j2. Or also would want to copy, well, if needed, copy the cloud.yaml, excuse me, local for future use, and then yada yada yada. Okay, so I will do, sorry, I'm having a bit of a brain fog right now. If needed, copy the cloud.yaml, yada yada. Okay, that's good. So that's my note. Let me do this. To do. I like to put in my comments to do so that I can just do a simple search, or sometimes IDEs will have built-in integration to actually key off of that, and then I can just simply find where my to-dos were. All right. So for now, let's take the, oh, actually there's one last thing I just realized I should put in this. I want to put a link back to that URL because the likelihood of finding that again could be surprisingly slim. Google is a little weird like that. All right, so let's use this template structure, create our own clouds.yaml, and then we will import said clouds.yaml. Since we already know what the values should be and what the values will be, we should be able, yeah, save. That's I'll actually always will hit Control S. Just add it. I know it auto saves, but Control S, lifesaver. Let's see. Oh, we already know what the values are going to be, so we can make, or during the molecule kickoffs, which is why I want to have it generate so that when we push down to the base to my basement, it'll actually, I'll have it. So let's just make, where's this file need to go? It told me and I have forgotten. YAML config file in etc ansible OpenStack YAML, etc OpenStack clouds.yaml, .config OpenStack clouds, and then from standard environment variables, and finally by explicit parameters in plays. Specific parameters in plays. Can I, in the cloud, can I just say, look at this file? If cloud is a string, it references a named cloud config as defined in OpenStack clouds. Provides default values for auth. This parameter is not needed if auth is provided. Blah blah blah. Oh wait, if cloud is a dictionary, it contains a complete cloud configuration, like would be in a sec. Oh, so there's a thought. What if I just make, instead of making the file right now, I just hard code the cloud authentication information into a dictionary and then use that for testing purposes. So Ansible dictionary. I never remember what the syntax is for creating this stuff sometimes. It's usually straightforward. All right, tasks with dictionary with predefined vars. Actually, we can do here in vars. Just make a temporary temporary thing. So we will do. What's that first value got to be? Clouds default. Let's go ahead and do that. So default auth. Actually, I'm actually gonna make these up or indent up a level, and we'll do clouds just to make it distinct, and so I don't get confused later. All right, so auth, and then we'll have auth URL project name tenant name username password user domain name project domain name. Oh boy. All right, then up a level region name interface. There's the identity API version. And we can just set that to 3 right now. If OpenRC insecure, just verify false and insecure true. I'm not going to do certificates right now. That's going to be a bit later. I still haven't. I've been reading the documentation, but I still haven't quite figured out how or what the most efficient way of hooking in free IPA dog tag generated certificates and pulling that into OpenStack. I suspect it's a lot easier than my head's making it on to be, but I don't want to deal with that headache quite yet. But the whole idea, and I don't think I did not mention this before, but the whole idea is I effectively want an IT in a box, which means that all the security that you would expect from your IT organization, Kerberos, certificates, etc., should be handled appropriately in this setup. And I do have plans for that. Specifically, one thing I'm looking at for holding on to secrets is actually HashiCorp's Vault project. I've been keeping an eye on that one, and I have used it a little bit before in a previous iteration of this project. But for now, that's a bit on the and the hardest thing is integrating HashiCorp Vault with FreeIPA and whatever else that needs to work with it. But a problem for another day. All right. So one thing I want to verify: domain create description example. Here's the thing I'm a little concerned about is, oh, they're exporting these by hand. Oh, but this is, all right, so actually I do have a lot of these available. We'll set this to the auth URL to http:// controller. I don't want controller. I want that to be Ansible FQDN. That way it fills it in dynamically-ish, and I don't have to worry about it. Port 35357 /v3. The project name, believe admin is always the default. the tenant name. I don't have one. Let's just comment that out for now. Username is admin. The password, since this is still in test, password is password. So diabolically simple, nobody will be able to guess it. Don't ever set password to password. You'd be surprising how many times I catch people doing that. User domain name is default, and the project domain name is default. I don't think they have a region yet. Or was I? Curse my jumping around. All right, domain needs to be created. And then project, there is no project. Oh, I know, there is a project domain. All right. These are separate projects. There's a user, there's a role. Do I have a region name? I should have a region name. A lot of times they make me have to have a region, like region 0. Did they finally fix that? Well, we'll find out. All right. Let's just comment out region name for now. Interface is what? What is that supposed to be? I've never seen that before. Friend of mine got to a router through password, a router that you could turn on or off network segments for a whole postal area code. Oh, that's amazing. You know, that's actually kind of it's scary how often that happens. And one thing I wish news organizations would actually do more of is or at least broadcasting stations at the very least, because everyone has a TV. Well, most everyone. What was it? Oh, most of the devices that this was during the 90s. Yeah, it's surprisingly still prevalent even today. Is the fact that most, I think I read an article about a year or two ago. It was just before the whole, must have been longer because it was before the whole Russian hacking thing. Yeah, 2+ years. Anyway, they had found that someone had infected, it was either Russia or China. So don't quote me on this because I could be wrong and I'm misquoting the article in general. Someone had infected a whole bunch of routers and modems because of they had figured out what the root password was, which of course once it's deployed is actually really hard to change. So once they figured out what the manufacturing admin password was, they had infected their own botnet into those routers and modems, and so a lot of people were actually unwittingly hosting a botnet on a piece of hardware most people honestly wouldn't suspect, and I honestly wouldn't blame them. It's a fairly, as far as everyone else is concerned, a fairly benign piece of hardware, but it's a very crucial one, and when it's infected, it's pretty bad. So yeah, that was that when I discovered that, that was very special, and it's the same kind of thing where your friend was able to find a router through password. That was probably on it. That I would hazard a guess that was either well, it's only going to be two possibilities. That was either the user account or the actual manufacturing account, because they do that, and there's no regulation for that whatsoever, which is unfortunate. It honestly needs to get fixed. All right, what is interface? Or did I just mistype something? Nope, there it is. Interface. OpenRC Clouds YAML interface. I've never seen that, and I suspect I don't need it. Yeah, I'm gonna comment it out. I don't think I need it. We'll find out soon enough. All right. So there's the basic. What I hope is a basic cloud file or a cloud var. Let's go back to OS client. This thing had said. There it is. If cloud is a dict, it contains a complete cloud configuration like would be in a section of clouds.yaml. So can I just simply pass can I simply pass? You know what? The only way to know is to actually test it. So let's put this in OS Keystone domain. Actually, before this, we need to name get lists. Yeah, get clouds. Cloud config. Do that. OS client config. Get a list of clouds that do not support security groups. What does that mean? Get list of clouds to limit the return list to no value means return information on all configured clouds. So is this really just debug? Do I need this? I must need this. Should I? I should. One would think. You know what? I'm gonna shoot from the hip. Live life on the edge. Just run this damn thing. All right. Cloud. Cloud. What do I call it? Default. Default. Cloud default. Wonderful name. And we'll just put state present. I don't like that. I don't like that order. The OCD kicked in for that one. Name demo. And put a description of demo domain. I don't feel like getting fancy with this. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what this thing wants to do. I'm in Keystone module. I'm already sourced in, so I should be able to do molecule converge. So for those who actually don't know, if you're ever writing in Ansible, especially if you're writing in Ansible, molecule is actually a nice little project. Well, that's running. Let me pull it up. I think I might actually have it. Nope, that's test infra. Ansible molecule. Here it is. So molecule is actually really nice, especially for developing Ansible roles. So what this does is provides you a framework where you can, let's say you've written up your module, and now that your module is written, you need a way to test it. Instead of doing a bunch of things by hand, especially since the whole idea is you should be able to destroy and recreate at will, you can use molecule as that infrastructure to help with that. So let me pull up an example here. Let me pull up this guy. Actually, might have noticed, so over here on the left is my basic folder structure for the module. For most Ansible modules, you'll have vars, templates, tasks, meta, handlers, and defaults. VS Code is the IDE thing. And the virtual environment is for the Python infrastructure specifically to support Molecule itself. So VenV is actually not committed into the Git repo or any of my Git repos. I do one Ansible role per Git repository. So VenV isn't actually there and is meant to be dynamically generated every time you clone it. Now, the one thing that I didn't list off for a basic Ansible role structure is this molecule directory. This guy's actually where Molecule lives, more or less. So here we've got, there's default. So this folder is the scenario. Each scenario, it's a think of it as a test scenario. So let's say you want to create a role and you're going to have a scenario as a just a single node, and another scenario of, well, there's 3 nodes now, and another scenario of, well, there's 3 nodes and 1 failed. You can configure Molecule to set up those different kind of scenarios. Most of the time, with my scenarios, I'll just either have the single default, or if I'm feeling especially I guess OS friendly, I should call it, I'll have a scenario for CentOS, I'll have a scenario for Ubuntu. If I ever get back to doing Arch Linux, I'll set up a scenario for Arch Linux, because I have a dev environment Ansible role that I have developed so that I can stand up this environment as quickly as possible if I ever need to. So anyway, that's the scenarios, and then inside of there you have a test directory. More on that in a bit. So the next thing is you have the Molecule playbook and prepare YAML. So over here on the right, you actually have the molecule.yaml. This is the config for Molecule. So this is telling Molecule how, what are, well, actually, let's just run through it. So here we have the dependency. So if it decides, hey, this module is looking for, this role that you've asked me to pull in is looking for dependencies, it's going to go check Galaxy. Should check local first, but it should also check Galaxy, or the Ansible Galaxy. And you can specify what that dependency is. I think the only option is Galaxy right now. Here's the driver. So here I've specified Vagrant specifically because I'm working with system config type roles for the moment. And I just want sysconfig, not sysconfig, what's it called? Systemd. Yep, that's the right. Systemd. So, if you're on Linux or specifically Red Hat, so this should work for the latest Ubuntu as well. But let's say I want to start up the SSH service, systemctl start SSH or SSHD, whatever the service name is actually called. That mechanism is not inherent in Docker. While it is possible to get it running in Docker, it was more trouble than it's worth, so I just said Vagrant. So actually what you see on the screen is a System 76 laptop running Pop! OS, which is a derivative of Ubuntu. It's nice. It's Ubuntu. At the end of the day, it's just Ubuntu. I'm partial to Arch Linux. I unfortunately come from a Gentoo background, so I like to be a little bit more handsy with my OSs. But Ubuntu is really nice for if you just want things to just get up and run and not actually have to baby your machine for an entire day, which is fine by me. So anyway, if you're writing Ansible stuff for, one scenario is, let's say you're working with pure Docker containers. If you're in that kind of environment, that's great. So you can change this to Docker. You can tell it, go pull this Docker container as your base image, and then apply Ansible on your Ansible roles on top of that. That's especially helpful for being able to let's say you're developing a service for that you want to re-release as a Docker container, a brand new service, and you can have Ansible go and quickly stand that up, and then push that out there, and a lot less. What's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot less scripting and more, well, let me be careful with that. I want to say less scripting, but more infrastructure as code. But the idea is, especially with things like Ansible and other configuration management tools like Puppet and Chef, ultimately what you want is to be able to say, here's the state I want you to be in. I don't necessarily need to tell you how to get there. And the only time I should have to tell you how to get there is if you just simply don't know how. But at the end of the day, here's usually they call them resources, where it's like, here's a resource I've defined that says I need you to be in this state for this particular piece, and then you can go and define how you get there in the back end. Anyway, that's configuration management kind of 101-ish. But you can set this as Docker. I can't. I'm working with services that just depend on systemd, and I just don't want to fight the systemd stuff right now. All right, finally, let's move on. So here we have the linter. I am using YAML lint to go and actually lint through and find potential syntax errors, or just things that don't make sense in YAML format. This YAML lint will actually go and search all of my YAML files and verify that I'm being sane with my YAML syntax. So next we have the platforms. In this particular case, I'm actually, that's right, I think I missed something. So let me come back up here. So I defined, back in the driver, I defined Vagrant is the tool to use, and the provider is going to be VirtualBox. So it's going to use VirtualBox instead of VMware or any other hypervisor software you may have. Usually in Docker, I don't think you define provider. Don't really know. You can check. Molecule has pretty decent documentation on their stuff. All right, jumping back down to where I was. So platforms. Here's the name of the actual box that Molecule will know it as. Here's the name of the box that Vagrant knows it as, specifically when it goes and downloads off the internet. Here I actually had to do some, I would consider some magic voodoo. Let me, you can see a little bit more of this. I'm doing something a little special, where I have to work around VirtualBox's unfortunate limitations in networking. A combination of VirtualBox and Vagrant. Vagrant does everything through a NATed interface, which is not inherently bad, but it becomes a pain when it's coupled with VirtualBox's networking stuff, which is every single VM deployed is effectively natted off on its own. So they're like one box networks, which is unusable if you actually want to work in a multi-box environment where you want box A to talk to box B. Imagine that. If you can't tell, I'm less than enthused with the way VirtualBox does things. But anyway, this was my workaround where I'm telling Molecule, when you stand up the VM, here's some raw config arguments to pass to VirtualBox, where it will go and specify to create a secondary interface, connect to it, and that interface is actually is a dedicated network where you can connect all the boxes together. Assign it this IP address, and then some other VirtualBox settings. I can't remember what this intnet is, and I wish the IDE would stop doing that. But here's the bridge. Damn it. In this particular case, I want to make sure that the interface is able to connect to my Wi-Fi or my Ethernet, depending on which one's active. Since this is a laptop, it can be either one. So it's some special mojo in order to figure that one out. So here's the provisioner. It's Ansible. The first thing it's going to do is actually run a prepare.yaml and I'll let you take a look at that in a sec. Here's something I had to specify specific is when you look for Ansible roles, look here. The main reason for this is I'm trying to be as self-contained as possible, so I'm actually not reaching out and reusing existing Ansible modules, but I am using or reusing the ones that I've already created. And some of them, excuse me, some of them are, some of my, especially my prepare.yaml is actually configuring off of existing roles I have. So for example, I have a role called the FreeIPA client. And I use that in order to make sure that when I eventually start tying these things in with single sign-on and FreeIPA, that I'm able to have an environment where I can properly test that and make sure that I'm interacting, the service I'm standing up is interacting appropriately with FreeIPA for authentication and whatever else. So there's the roles. So when I pull those in, here's the Ansible lint to make sure that the lint is sane. I'm telling it it's going to search the entire directory, but I'm saying ignore the virtual environment. You're never going to find Ansible stuff in there. It's all Python. And then here I'm telling the Ansible lint to exclude this rule in particular. I can't remember what that rule is. Oops. Let's make sure I'm not destroying my file. Let me quick look what that lint was. What is that? Man, this is determined not to actually give me what I want. High version, false positives, rules. All right, I'm gonna have to look at that later. There's a reason I put it in there and I have forgotten. I just remember it being a pain, so that's why I X'd it out. All right, so here's the name of the scenario this molecule YAML should be, the actual name it's looking for. And again, you will have one molecule.yaml per scenario. You need to make sure that the molecule YAML knows what the actual scenario name is, so that when you do a molecule scenario list or just I think a molecule list, it'll actually list off appropriately the different scenarios. I kind of wish it did that based on directory, but if I remember right, there was a specific reason they didn't do that, and it actually allows them more flexibility by making you define it here. I think it was part of the reason was so that you can have a central folder of referenceable and reusable scripts that would be appropriate for whatever your scenario might be. And finally, the verifier, which is our tests. I'm using the test infra test framework, and it's going to use the Flake 8 linter, and again, ignore the VM directory. So that's a quick breakdown of the molecule that I've got set up. This has been fairly copy-paste across multiple roles. Small tweaks here and there, depending on if I decide to throw in Ubuntu versus CentOS. I'm running everything downstairs as CentOS, specifically because I have had I've had issues with Ubuntu in the past regarding it really doesn't matter between server and desktop, but whenever I have to upgrade, um, when I have to upgrade between like Ubuntu 14.04 to 15.04 or 16.04, a major version upgrade, I have problems, and it almost always forces me to have to reinstall the entire box. And considering how quickly Ubuntu moves, which is not inherently bad, but it's too quick, in my opinion, for server type deployments. Um, and that's why I stick with CentOS. I know CentOS is not necessarily better in their major version upgrades. I know they're definitely not better in their major version upgrades, but because they happen uh, so infrequently, I have time to breathe and still get security updates without having to push myself up to the next version. And I'm well aware of Ubuntu's LTS. Um, I think right now, way back when, I remember 14.04. Next one's 16.04. I think they're on 18.04 right now. That's their current up-to-date LTS. Um, but I'm probably making a mountain out of a molehill, but it's 4 years is still more frequent than Red Hat. And I know I have a little bit more playtime in there, but for my infrastructure, I had to just pick a version and stick with it. I like the hierarchy in YAML and JSON, so genius. Yeah, it's pretty nice. The only thing I've run into that I don't know why I can't grok this sometimes, is these dashes. I know they're in the right place, but for some reason when I see them, when I look at this, I tend to focus them out and I see everything on the same line, and my head just kind of just it's like, what just happened? This doesn't seem right. Um, that's just my brain's ability to parse this thing, but no, they have YAML and JSON have some nice stuff. The only problem I had with JSON, and they only recently fixed this, was, and I don't agree with what he did. I understand why he did it. I don't think he did it the right way. What was it, 3-4 years ago, I think? The creator of JSON removed the ability to have comments in there, specifically because the comments that were there, people were using it to force the JSON interpretation engine to do different rules, and it was the JSON creator didn't like it, and instead of letting people do their thing until he came out with a proper change, he just took it out. So no one could do comments for like 4 years, and I think he finally put it back last year, or within the last year or so. So I don't like his approach, and whenever I read interviews, he was kind of a dick. We just use on really crucial settings, only JSON on radio packets. Huh. I don't think I've ever... Interesting. I've never actually seen anything like that before. I don't mess with JSON all too much. Or I don't play around with it all too much, aside from just REST API type stuff I've done. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're doing there. I think I see what you're doing there. Yeah, interesting. Huh. Okay. You have to let me ponder on that one. I'm trying to rightfully actually make sure I understand what I'm looking at there. Not, if you don't mind, if you don't mind explaining it, please do. I think I remember that sound effect I did before. It's happening right now. I got a road jam in my head. But yeah, I actually would like to know more about that. I might be missing something blatantly obvious on that one. I'm just not quite sure how I'm supposed to interpret that one. Oh, I see. Oh, all right. No, all right. No, now I get it. All right. Road jam through. Um. Yes, the prepare.yaml. Let's take a look at that. Prepare.yaml. And I'm sure my molecule's done, my molecule run is done doing whatever it was doing. So by default, the prepare.yaml is really just this. That's when you tell molecule to spin up a new role, this is what it gives you for a default prepare section, which is fine. If your test environment does not contain Python on it, which not all installations do, Ubuntu doesn't come with Python. Sorry, hold on before I bite my tongue on that one. It was either Ubuntu or CentOS or both. Uh, they were not providing, or they did not have Python installed by default, which is the reason why I'm kind of biting my tongue a little bit, is because I know that Yum and apt-get are both Python based or Python derivatives, although I'm looking at this pre-task right here and it's doing a apt update, so it might have been Ubuntu. I never bothered to take it out. So yeah, it'll, if Python's not there and install it, Python has to be there on the client side in order for Ansible to run. The next thing I do is I run setup, which will gather the facts, or will go to the machine, gather the facts. And when you do, and it was to offset the gather facts false, because if you tried running this task and gather facts was true, it would fail because Python wasn't there yet. But now Python is there, I tell it go ahead and gather them. And then finally, I have these roles. These are all roles that I've written so far. I have my own automated bits corp role. This is just kind of not, I wouldn't say a catch-all, but it's a, these are settings that should be persistent across all machines. For example, I actually have like this most of this top section right here is actually defining where is the repo server. So in my case, mainly because I'm developing on a laptop that's not guaranteed to have internet all the time, that's why I have the pulp server vagrant machine that I showed earlier, is the this will go and set up all vagrant machines to it'll clear out all the default repositories that CentOS comes with by default, and then it will insert new ones. It's not explicit here, but it will by default do the base CentOS repositories and set those up. And then here I have additional repositories so that I can define them as needed. So here's what the local name of the repository will be. So if you go to etc yum.repo.d/ and then you'll see all of those .repo files. After this runs, you'll see this epl-7.repo and this CentOS OpenStack Queens.repo. So these are going to be the repo name of the repo files. And then this is the extraneous path at the end of the pulp server, the primary pulp server URL. It will append these to the end and the repositories will be set up. Vagrant true is because Vagrant does special stuff and I had to account for it. But I wanted to make sure that I could be adaptable to Vagrant and non-Vagrant. And then finally set up the resolve name servers, and especially with these resolve net adapters and net type, Vagrant, that's more Vagrant speciality. Finally, I have my free IPA client role, and then here's all of my dependent OpenStack roles that are, I have them separated out, but I also have them not built in as part of the main. Um, they're not built in as part of the main Keystone role, and that's simply because, uh, and that's let me finish this. Let me finish this thought real quick, and I'll address something. Um, I did not have. Uh, sorry, I'm brain farting right now. Oh, I did not want to include these OpenStack roles specifically as part of Keystone because I wanted to leave the option for other uh, pre-existing Ansible roles or for someone else to pull in their own role. So if someone really wanted to use someone else's memcache role, that option was available, and so that's why that's segmented the way it is. Um, all right, so Osakal, thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy. In case you don't know, I do stream every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Mountain Time. Uh, and I'm under the impression, don't quote me on this, and I'm still learning. I think now that you followed, Twitch should notify you when I go live. Um, I try to go live, or I'll have Twitch. I'll do like a starting soon card about 15-20 minutes before the actual start. So you'll get an early notification, but you've got time. Oh, are you in Finland? Oh, wow. That's it's quite the time leap. Um I appreciate the dedication. That's an early hour, man. Though that's coming from a guy who thinks that any time before noon is early. All right, so you actually had a question before. What is the role of a molecule? Um, so actually, Molecule is the test framework I use for the Ansible playbooks. Um, so with these configurations in place, uh, let's actually go back to my command line. Oh, of course it failed. I have a vague idea as to why that failed. Anyway, um, so Molecule is just simply the name of the framework that someone created in order to test Ansible roles. In fact, let me scroll up for a bit. So right here I have molecule. I did a molecule converge. Molecule is just simply a framework and nothing more. Oops. Here we go. So here's the basic commands. They're fairly straightforward, but the main thing is to provide a structure in order to help um, organize and prepare the environment for Ansible to run and to test. Excuse me. And so it's strictly an aid framework for testing Ansible roles. They can spin up. The basic idea is once molecules configured, you can do the basic flow. Let me scroll back up real quick because they show it here. So this is just up to converge, and there's more afterwards if you're doing a full test. It's going to download and install any dependencies. So if your Ansible role depends on something in the Ansible Galaxy, it'll download it here. Here, the create step in this particular case, or my particular case, it is actually spinning up a Vagrant virtual machine box, and then once it's created, it will run the prepare playbook, which I just had up in my other window. Once it's prepared, converge is the actual step where now that the environment is fully prepared, it will now take your role that you're creating, and it will actually run it on your new environment. And then so you can actually see it broken down here. So it did the dependencies. There's nothing there, so it skipped it. Here's the action create. So here it actually created the virtual machine. Here's the preparation, which is that big file of playbook that you saw with all of my custom roles. And it failed at that part, which I need to look into what happened there. But after it had finished this step, it would have actually ran the Keystone role that I'm currently developing in. And then if you actually, when I do, the idea is I want to be able to run molecule test, converges everything, applies it, assuming nothing's wrong. There's a nice test framework here that I use called I'm using the test infra library, where with Python code, I can actually write various tests to say, all right, now that this whole thing is stood up and I've converged the playbook, what is the state I expect the environment, this test environment, to be in? So for example, here I have OpenStack Keystone, HTTPD, and mod WSGI. It is actually it will log into the machine and actually test to verify those packages are installed. And in other roles, I actually have much more complicated various tests, but they have some pretty basic stuff. Mainly Python. They actually do support. There's a total of 3 test frameworks that they do support. Not under testing. I've gotten caught by that. That's not where it is. Configuration, I think. Yep, here it is. It was a little easier actually before. So there's one called GOS, which I'm not familiar with, and I haven't messed with. So there's GOS. There's InSpec, which is actually primarily Chef based. And the final one is Test Infra, which is Python based. So those are the current 3 test infrastructures or testing frameworks that Molecule currently supports. If I remember right, so Test Infra is Python, InSpec is Ruby, Ruby/Chef, and GOS I have no idea, but it looks like YAML. I chose Python just because I knew I was going to be doing some pretty complicated various tests, fancy regexes and whatnot. Oh yeah, I love Python. I wish, honestly, I'm not a huge Java fan, and it's honestly nothing to do with Java itself, but its prevalence is a little irritating. Combination of, admittedly, and this is going to be rather low or rather shallow of me, but I really like Python. But Java has its place. It's fine as a language for the most part. There's a few quirks. Yeah, too long. But it feels more verbose than Python, and I hear people complain that Python's too verbose, which just boggles my mind. Anyway, but my main problem isn't actually to do with the language itself. My main problem is actually the developers who use it, because they don't do proper error checking. And so, more often than not, in an enterprise environment, I'll be going along and, oh hey, the service went down. I go and look at it, and I get this huge stack trace instead of it actually telling me what went wrong. It's like, and it turns out it's like, oh well, I had a syntax error in a config file. So you gave me a stack trace dump instead of telling me you didn't like the file? it's things like that. And again, that's more a knock on the developers rather than the language. But the fact that the language doesn't, or the culture of the language, I should say, doesn't promote that is disappointing. Use C or C++ instead. To be fair, C and C++ can get a little worse. It really depends on what your project is trying to do. C and C++ are not great for web frameworks. It's a little, it's too much for a web framework, and it's possible, but it's way more difficult than it needs to be. Um, and that's kind of the allure of Java in general, is it's really easy to stand up and make a web service with that. Um, but it's it's almost gotten too easy. which is weird to say, because I want this whole thing to be very accessible so more people can learn this stuff and you know and whatnot, but it's it is what it is. I'm not solving world hunger or language wars for that matter. All right, so let's rewind a bit. Why did this fail? Unable to find IPA server to join. Huh. That should not be the case. That should not be the case because the free IPA server was running. Logout closed is fine. That's not a problem. Yeah, it's like anything else. That's exactly right. Figure out the right tool for the trade. Yep. I can't say it any better. I agree. And that's kind of, if you know Java, that's fine. Just the culture of not error checking is really what drives me up the wall. Because honestly, it comes down to this. If the only way for me to be able to figure out why your code broke is to look at your code, it's broken. If you're gonna have a problem, then you need to if your code is gonna have a problem, then it needs to report and say, this is why I had a problem. It's not easy to do. Believe me, error checking is a pain in the butt, but it's one of those necessary evils. My boss is a genius and a good teacher, just saying. Yes. Your boss has some good lines. Not knowing your boss, that's all I can say. No, I've met a few people who've they've said the same thing, and it's a small world. Sayings get around, and they're good sayings, and they're good for a reason. But yeah, that's a good line. All right. Great PS server. Why'd you fail? Why did you fail? Vagrant SSH. System CTL list units. Oh, why? You were running. Well, that's why I didn't find it. The IPA service crashed. Damn it. Sudo reboot. Oh, that's a problem. Alright. Yeah, I kind of wish I had honestly, I wish I had a bit of a drink. Should have got myself a hard cider, but oh well. Yeah, God, 5 a.m. man. That's late. Um, but yeah, so if you feel free to tune back in next time. I appreciated you being here and checking me out. Appreciate the follow as well. And if I miss your farewell, then best of luck to your projects, and hope you tune in again, just in case. I don't want to miss that. I'm not always the quickest on spotting the chat. All right. Are you behaving now? You are not behaving now. Why are you not behaving now? This is weird. I've never seen. Like to follow engineering tags. Oh yeah, the whole tag thing with Twitch really caught me off guard. I used to be, when they had categories, I used to be in the programming category. And so when they changed, and I'm looking, I'm like, what are all the tags, and why are these all predefined? And anyway, I know what they were going for, but honestly, they should have just kept tags and categories. I'm not sure why they didn't. But electronics use a search word. Oh. Yeah, there's some tags I honestly wish that they had kept around, or they should have added. Um, I should look into at some point if I can submit my own tag, or at least ask them to. It's like, here's a tag for your consideration. Please do the needful. Why are you not working? I just want to poke. Worst comes to worst, destroy, recreate. But I do want to find out why you broke. Of course, cd var log IPA less IPA roll. Okay, that didn't help. Less messages. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Starting. And failed. Why'd you fail? You know what? That's right. Journal CTL-U IPA. Ugh. This full screen. Failed to start identity policy and audit. Nah, really? I thought you were working. Oh wait. Failed to start named service, shutting down. Huh? Oh, it's my okay. SysCTL list units. There's named and oh, failed to start the name service. Why did it fail? SysCTL start IPA. Think about it really hard. Let me prep this guy. Try again. Yeah, man. Oh. Alright, journal CTL-U named.pkcs11. What a name. LDAP error, local error, SASL, generic failure. Unspecified GSS failure. Minor code may provide more information. Couldn't establish connection in LDAP connection pool. Minor code may provide more server not found in Kerberos database. Bind to LDAP server failed. Why? What were the other ones? Oh. Doesn't look like Kerberos was running. Yeah, exactly. Unspecified error. Thanks. Though that's still slightly the way they worded it was actually much more helpful compared to I remember back in it was Windows XP. I got a little pop-up window that said it said generic error. it was a generic error occurred. I'm like, what? It's you would think being generic that it's like, oh well, you would know what it is, right? Nah, they had no idea. when I finally looked up the error code, they're like, yeah, this error code exists. We don't really know what it means. Didn't you make it? So yeah, that was special. Journal ctl-u admin. I just, I think it was around the days I was still into Pokemon at the time. I'm like, you might as well have just had a missing numbers just show up in your OS. Thanks, Microsoft. Kadmin server error while initializing. Server error while what? What? Why? That's even less useful. Why you broke? Oh wait. Hey, what do you know? There's a kadmin dlog. That still doesn't help. Server error while initializing. Aborting. Okay. Alright. You know what? Yep, I've determined I don't care anymore. I'm destroying this thing. Vagrant. Destroy. Vagrant. Up. Yes. That's the beautiful thing about being able to do Vagrant up and destroy and all that. Just doesn't work. Oh well. Give me a new one. This is where Docker comes in real handy. They are working on a FreeIPA version for Docker, a Docker version of FreeIPA. I'm really hoping that comes around sooner rather than later. Because honestly, FreeIPA was one of the few reasons I didn't just jump straight, or pretty much put all my chips on black, or AKA Docker. And why I bothered with OpenStack in the first place is because I still need some of these services that cannot run in Docker right now. The downside is that this does take a bit. Do it. Do it. Why are you you're rsync in the folder? I hate it when I do this. I forgot to source. Because otherwise I can't find Ansible. So Vagrant provision. Do. Just cleared up the repos, set the repos. Now it's downloading the NMCLI requirements because Vagrant is a special little boy. Again, it's the whole NAT, and to be fair, it's not just Vagrant. Vagrant's one specialty is that its interface is always NAT. But it gets worse when it's coupled with VirtualBox, because VirtualBox networking is it stinks. Okay, restart the interface, install Havage, enable Havage. Havaged is especially important. So, well, random tidbit of the day. Along with all my other tidbits, Havaged is actually, I would consider, a requirement for virtual machines, strictly because what it does, it helps fix the remnants of a security hole that was opened or discovered several years ago with virtualization, where the hardware random number generator of what was it? I think it was like dev urandom or something in Linux OSs. There was a security hole. I don't know the specifics on it, but when it got patched and the OS asked for random numbers, especially for security stuff, it it was slow. Like really slow. Like we would still be waiting slow. um when it came to random number generators. And so what would happen is when you were trying to encrypt something or generate new certificates and so on, the machine would run out of what was called entropy. And once it runs out of entropy, it gets slow. Which is pretty much if I remember right, and its entropy was in relation to a virtual machine's ability to create random numbers, especially long random numbers, which is what you want for secure applications. So, for example, if I were to run this free IPA installer as Ansible is doing now without Havaged, it would literally take 3 hours in order to install. But with Havaged, I don't know the specifics of what they're doing, but they step in place of the hardware random number generator, and once it's installed, your 3 hour secure command turns into seconds, minutes at worst. So it's a real lifesaver, and that's one of the reasons I say it's in my humble opinion, consider it to be a requirement for Havaged, or for virtual machines. I'm not sure what that means for Docker containers, though. I really don't. Because Havaged is a service, but I assume they've got some way of handling that. They actually, because it's not technically virtualization, it's more of a because Docker is more of a GL'd root, and it's just another process as far as the kernel is concerned. They might not need the Havaged workaround. Just put a number 42 in every random number it generates. Well, but that means it has the answer, right? It just needs to compute the question. Yeah, this free IPA installer is still dog slow, though. Oh. All right. God, it's 8. I'm already an hour and a half. How long? Oh, jeez. Some days they're just like this. I'm almost 2 hours into my broadcast. I've got about another hour to go, and I'm not where I want it to be. Free IPA kind of threw a wrench in that. So there's Pulp Server that's running just fine. Free IPA is doing its thing. While it's doing its thing, let's go and verify. All of this just to test. Hold on. I'll show it to you. All this just to test this. Yeah, I've got a complicated setup, but it when it works, it's a thing of beauty. This is actually a little surprising. It's normally not this problematic. I don't normally have to kill and recreate the free IPA server. So yeah, this is actually very odd. So actually, one thing we can do. I just had a. This is probably actually going to be really great. So while we're waiting for that to do its thing, let us create the new module that that we'll eventually be going into, or at least the infrastructure of setting that up. Glance, that's the one. All right, so in order to do this, the way I've got things set up is inside projects Ansible, I've got the molecule EMV right here.
which is a very strictly used for standing up new a new Ansible role. It's real. That's all it's there for. Um, but I still need to source it, venv, then activate, and then let's go into the OpenStack directory and one of these has my thing. Vagrant. There's a command I have. It's in my history somewhere. Oop, nope. Aha, right there. So this is the command I use for creating new new roles. So molecule init, I'm initializing a new role. The test provider or the infrastructure provider is going to be Vagrant, and the name of the role is going to be simply Glance. And then once it does that, it initialized. So here we've got our new directory here, Glance. And if we cd into that, we've got our defaults, handlers, meta, tasks, vars, and of course the infamous molecule directory. And what I do to set this up, once I've created the main structure, first let me deactivate because I don't need that. Second, I actually create a new group. Did I lose it in my history? Venv. Nope, it's there. So 1477. So I'm looking at this line right here. This is, I'm telling Python, create a new virtual environment using Python 3.6. And it will go and create the environment. So if we lsla, we now have the venv directory right there. And here we have actually a bunch of CPs. Specifically, let us look at, let's go up one, go into Keystone, CP. We'll want those, but not right now, right here. So I am CPing the .gitignore, for Git, which is specifically for Git, the requirements.txt, which has the Ansible, molecule, etc. I have a predefined YAML lint config file, and I want to copy it not to OpenStack SQL, but to, nope, not Keystone either, Glance. And then finally, let us cd into molecule, default, and let me verify, yep. If I do cp again, we want the molecule and the prepare.yaml. The molecule and prepare.yaml I tend to use over and over and over again. And we will put it into Glance's molecule default. So now, with that, we have a, do get init, get status, and since it's brand new, everything should be untracked. But with that, we have the very start of our new Ansible role. So let's just go ahead and get add everything. There we go. Git commit initial commit. And then one thing I do in order to test, I should have done this before I committed. One thing I do to test to make sure everything is all hunky-dory is molecule converge. Oops. Oh, I did miss one step, which is the to tell pip to use the requirements file in order to download and install within the virtual environment, or within Python's virtual environment,
Molecule, Ansible, and a few other prerequisites. Let's let that go. That's actually, normally it's done by now. That's actually the slowest I've ever seen it do this. There it goes. Must have been a new version of Ansible that they didn't have, that I didn't have cached. Okay, I think 2.7 looks new. So there we go. So it set up all that. And to give you an idea what the requirements is, that's literally all it is. Ansible, Flake, Molecule, Python, Vagrant. Pox I could probably get rid of, but it's just there. Okay, so now I should be able to Molecule converge, happy, and this will ooh, it's still gonna try to go after free IPA, which should be running. So we should be good. So while that runs in the background, let's check on free IPA. Everything should be happy here. Units, everything's happy. Except for Network Manager. Network Manager wait online? I don't know what that is, I've never seen it. I will assume it's not a problem. I have the proverbial fingers in my ear. Adios shakes. Yeah, that, and also for some reason now that I'm talking a bunch, I'm getting nasal problems. Give me one sec. Sorry about that. That's a do a good cough. Pretty sure you guys didn't want to hear that. Blast your eardrums out. Where am I? Oh yeah, I'm on a Keystone. All right. So that's doing the NMCLI. This is going to use the exact same IP address. I can't run Keystone right now. Larg. I'll let this thing finish up. Slime dripping from the Thankfully, I don't have that kind of nasal congestion, though it would have been, I would be telling you a different story about 5 weeks ago. Oh, my head was just, let's just say it was an echo chamber, because it was literally all I could hear was myself whenever I breathed. Alright, so now the free IPA client package will install. And then here's the client installer itself. This will register, and it registered. Yes. It took the Greek drink. I try to stay away from green drinks. They're weird. All right. So at this point, we're done with that. So let's do molecule destroy. So the test for this glance molecule was that it spun up. It was all happy. We proved that, so we're good. Because we already registered, we need to now unregister so that I can now test glance finally. Monkey2.exe. Where is that going to take me? Oh, that's an actual website, monkey2.exe. I probably shouldn't, but I will trust your link. Site can't be reached. Monkey Island. Oh, I'm about to admit something that's probably gonna make you very disappointed in me. I've actually have never played Monkey Island. None of them. I've never been. Don't get me wrong. I've heard good things. I've just never been a big adventure game person. I do feel like I'm missing out. You know what I should do? I should find someone's Let's Play on that. There we go. Knet admin password is password because we're so diabolically simple. And now, what was the command? IPA host find? Hey, I actually remembered that. All right, and then IPA host del client -1.test.int because we need that back. And the host is unregistered. All right, now it's. Oh yeah, no problem. Oh, one more thing before you go. I haven't done it last time, and I should. I actually take these live streams and I tell Twitch to push them over to my YouTube. So if you'd like to actually catch the rest of this, I should have that pushed over in a day or two. I'll see if I can actually get it done tonight. We'll see. But yeah, I archive because Twitch doesn't hold on to things for very long. I archive everything on my YouTube channel, link down below. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and hope you come back next time. And until then, good luck on your projects, and happy coding. All right. So we deleted the host from FreeIPA. Let us now. All right, catch you later, Osakal. Did I pronounce it? Osakal? You'll have to correct me next time. Have a good night, man. Let us molecule converge, and this time it should work. Unfortunately, we have to. Thankfully, it's a lot quicker because it's already done this stuff, but we do have to wait for it to go through that step. Excuse me. FreeIPA client installers, who were back to where we failed before. It was successful. Now we wait for OpenStack to do the rest of its stuff. Okay. Well, that's running. So there is one thing we can be doing in the meantime, which is starting to build out the Glance module. Tasks. So one thing I do tend to do is I will build out things in the tasks first, and then I'll pull things out and put them into handlers and other. I'll break out task individual files typically right away, but I won't do the. I will not do the handlers until later, just to keep things right in my head. Or it's easier for me to do a long list and then slowly pick things out and make it more efficient. All right, so this was kind of what I was afraid of. We can't go too far because they need us to create the user, we need to create the role and the service, etc., etc. But worst of all, we need to create the database stuff. We can do that, but we will have to add it in somewhere. Where do I want to add that in? Do I want to add it in directly into the OpenStack SQL role I created, or do I want to put it in wrapper of some kind? Let me take a look at. Yeah, there's OpenStack SQL. Let me take a look at. Let me first create or name this. This is going to be OS Keystone. And then this is going to be OS Glance. And finally, this is going to be OS SQL.
So cd to projects, Ansible, OpenStack, OpenStack SQL, and open up code here. All right, let's check things out. Main configure keystone. So I did put keystone here. You know what? I should put in a trigger. The trigger should be whether or not it does the keystone, glance, etc., etc. I can set that as Boolean values so that when I make because the plan is once I've created the individual OpenStack components, I'm going to have one overarching OpenStack playbook or role where I can do the heavy customization like, oh, I want this service but not this service. And I can have that just simply pass it in when it calls this. So let me look at the defaults. And we are going to say, we're going to call the value install keystone db will default to true. We'll do the same thing with glance db, defaulted to true. And then let's go over to the main.yaml and we will put in include tasks when configure install keystone db is true. That's probably not the right syntax. Let me look up the right syntax. Ansible when initials. Import include tasks when x is not defined. I want true. When things set to true. No. Oh wait, okay. I'm doing this. I'll just say this, and I don't need this on a new line. More errors. All right. Okay, but I do need the colon. And okay, so that should work. And then if it's true, we'll do it. If it's not, it won't. Include tasks configure glance.yaml when install glance db. And let's create this file. New file. Bam. As all YAML start, 3 dashes. And let's pull up the configure.yaml because it's really more of the same. Let's just copy this over for now. Create the glance database. The name. All right, now we come back to here, create database glance. Database name, glance. Create local glance user and privileges. The name is glance. Name glance. This should really be
Glance DB password. And while we're thinking of it, let's make that default. Glance DB password. And we'll just say password is password because we're so diabolically simple. Nobody will be able to guess it. That's a good start. This glance. Create glance user at the percent. Glance. Probably would have been better if I just did a search and replace, but it's so close to done. Glance. All right, let's do a quick search for keystone. Nope. All right, let's make sure I'm not doing anything I shouldn't be doing. Everything looks good. Okay. So, the nice thing is because the defaults are all true, I don't have to modify anything. Or at least when it comes to calling this OpenStack SQL role. So, let's take a quick look of OS Keystone. And it failed. To utilize this module, the installed version of the OpenStack SDK library must be 0.12.0. So, we need to install the OpenStack SDK library. Won't be this easy, would it? Pip install OpenStack SDK. Hey, it was as simple as that. Sweet. Converge. And ideally, it should actually chug its way through pretty darn quick. Dookadoo. 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 Oh. Oh, wait. Does that have to be local or on the remote host? Might be the remote host. Let's do a search on this message. Somebody will know it. Oh, excuse me. Pardon me. Configuration. With upgrade of one component, requirements of others also increase. You can't expect that Ansible 2, whatever, always require blah blah blah. Wait, what are they asking for? I can't create user with Ansible 2.6 with an Ansible or with an OpenStack SDK 0917 Pike. I'm gonna name OS user. Ansible version, configuration, OS environment, yep. Python 2, OpenStack SDK. Where does that need to be though? Alright, this is not quite telling me what I want. I have tried to install also the OpenStack, but I'm getting some unrelated dependencies. Still needed to tell the connection type. This is required for any modules that talk to an API or doesn't require an SSH connect. Oh. Okay. Let's try that. Delegate. Delegation. Okay, so just delegate to localhost.
That's the one. Delegate. Nope. Actually, this needs to be up a level. Delegate to localhost. Try again. Probably the one thing that does annoy me with DevOps is just the waiting. Aha! Different error. Cloud default was not found. The cloud default was not found. We got the vars and everything. I mean, come on. I'm not surprised it actually didn't work. What I want. How did this person do the needful? Oh. Uh-huh. Well, that would make sense. It would be easier if it wasn't a it would be easier if it was not brain fart. If it was a variable, and it should be a variable that I pass in. The whole point of why I was poking at this. Poke, poke, poke. Here it is. Keystone domain cloud. Do the auth. Named cloud or cloud config to operate against. If cloud is a string, it references a named cloud config as defined in an OpenStack clouds.yaml file, provides default values for auth and auth type. This parameter is not needed if auth is provided or if OpenStack OS environment variables are present. If cloud is a dictionary, it contains a complete cloud configuration like would be in a section of clouds.yaml. Dictionary containing auth information indeed by the clouds plugin strategy for def. Ansible, OpenStack, Cloud, example. Do. OS image name container disk. So are they assuming that that stuff's always gonna be? Nope, that's quite helping. Operate your OpenStack cloud using Ansible. I just want a simple file. Actually, let's do this. Ansible OpenStack cloud variable. Yeah, man. That's not it. Demo tutorial? But they're not selecting cloud here either. Yeah, they're sourcing the. That's what they're doing. Darn it. Ansible playbook. Oh yeah. Hmm. OpenStack. Oh no. Ansible. Sample cloud. Not quite. And stack example cloud. They spell out the auth, which in of itself is fine. But they don't tell me how I can R. How do I use this appropriately? Contains a complete cloud configuration. So wait, this parameter is not needed if auth is yeah. If cloud is a dictionary, it contains a complete cloud configuration like would be in a section of clouds.yaml. If cloud is a dictionary. Oh wait. That might be it. Let's try that. Let's try that. Default was not found. Lies. Lies and deceit. Alright. Alright. Let's try something. Let's just poke. Cloud default was not, and that was the same thing before, right? Yeah, cloud default was not. Just to make sure, I have this. Cloud's default auth. You know what? In reality, this would probably be an actual clouds.yaml or a just sourcing the admin file. Which means the values can come from a YAML config file in etc Ansible OpenStack YAML, etc OpenStack clouds.yaml, or .config OpenStack clouds.yaml. Then from standard environment variables. Then finally by explicit parameters and plays. Information can be found here. While OS client config will continue to exist, I'm recommending that users transition to using OpenStack SDK directly. How do I use this? Default. Cloud. Back to cloud. I would think it would just be clouds like what that thing had. Whoever did that? What if I did that? This doesn't look like well, that says cloud. This says clouds. Get OpenStack client config data from. Oh. I probably need that, don't I? Which was what I was looking at before. Alright, let's try again. Get list of clouds. Do not wait. I'm having a hard time reading this. Shared connection to 127 closed. Didn't need this, but just in case. OS client config is required for this module. Say what? Say what? OS client config is required for this module. Oh. Pip install OS client config. Requirement. Says it's already installed. Well, it's successfully installed. Maybe it's work? Nope. What? Auth plugin requires parameters which were not given. Auth URL. Let's sigh. Get the information back just about the Mordred cloud. Clouds default auth. No, wait. Did I do this? No, it's right there. Auth URL. ETH underscore URL colon space and the line
What do you not like? OpenRC OS auth. Do. Ansible role creates the configuration files used by various OpenStack CLI tools. Okay. How do you find this? OpenRC source openrc.j2. Where do you get these values? Defaults. That's where you get the values. OS auth URL. Colon 5000. Happy 5000. Huh. http:// the name 35357/v3. Think. What do I miss? What am I missing? What's that? I would expect you would need to know this locally, so I'd know where to connect. Oh, that might be. Oh. Let's just try this. This would be. No, but it was saying I couldn't find it. Let's do that. Do. Probably gonna barf. Yep, same error. Unsupported parameters for OS Keystone domain. Oh wait, I think it's just cloud. Yep. Singular. Cloud default is not found. Dang it. Where is this looking again for the clouds.yaml? Then from standard environment, then finally by explicit parameters in place. Then by explicit parameters in place. Oh, wait a minute. Wouldn't I just do... Let's just take this. And we will put this in... well, not there. Clouds.yaml. Oops. and call out clouds.yaml. Don't know if this will work. Named cloud or cloud configuration. Provided. If cloud is a dictionary, it contains a complete cloud configuration that would be a section of clouds.yaml. Her. Put that back. If cloud is a dictionary. So just do this. Odd. Very odd. Close this. Do default. It shouldn't work. Shouldn't. I'll try it anyway. Nope. If cloud is a dictionary, it contains a complete cloud configuration like would be in a section of clouds.yaml. Ansible, OpenStack, cloud, dictionary. Stuff. Clouds.yaml is searched on a remote host, not a machine when it was running. Oh, excuse me. I don't want to specify the auth params in the playbook manually. Just silly. Um, Ay.
Those you on my side mission. All the Ansible OS modules need shade, and that will be responsible for all the OS modules launch. At the time running that is not yet available. Pardon me. Then just in Ansible declare which cloud you're configuring. Can be under current directory, tilde.config, or etc OpenStack. I selected etc OpenStack. Um, so ideally, clouds.yaml, according to this, be under current directory. Clouds.yaml can be under current directory, which means molecule's not seeing something. We're not pulling it in. Let me look at molecule. Configuration. What was this one? Ansible roles path. Library. A filter. What? Ansible library. No, that's the default module path. Okay. Oh, jerker. I'm falling flat. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. How do I fix you? Um. Change users client. Again, still shouldn't work. Nope, doesn't work. Yeah. All right. So it should be found in the current directory. It's not found in the current directory. What? Molecule clouds.yaml. No, I don't want molecular. Cool. Ooh, wait. Clouds.yaml. I get the feeling this is not what I'm looking for. What are you trying to do? Oh. For shade to work, feature requests, OpenStack driver should be able to fetch credentials. Let's try this. There's one thing I saw earlier about the YAML being in vault. Failing when clouds.yaml is vaulted. And it's open.
need this to work relatively well. Alright, you know what? I'm just gonna have to do this by hand. Take it. Take it, I say. Bam. Bam. Let's see if that works. Oh, that's messy. Actually, problem was probably because of the delegation. Utilize this module. The install version of the Stack SDK library must be that. Okay. Um, and OS 7 OpenStack. Okay. All from packages. Do Python dash project client. Python dash OpenStack client. Maybe. All right, so let's do name install client package name item state present with items. Bam. Nope. Python dash stack client. Oh, and become true. Do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. It's not happy with that. I don't think I did the with items correctly. With underscore items. Oop. Try again. Found unacceptable key. Line 8, column 12. Line 8. Oh. Caught by that every so often still. Alright, so let's try instead Python dash keystone. No, it's not there. Well, that's problematic. There's glance, fuel. There's no keystone. Seriously? Well, those are individual clients. I don't know. I'm gonna have to mull around on this, poke around and figure out how I want to do this. Well, that was disappointing. Well, we learned some things. Got a new way of doing a few things. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna call it a night, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks, thanks for the participation. And again, I stream every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 10 Mountain Time, and you can check me out. I've got a LinkedIn and Twitter down below. I've got a blog which I'll be uploading my tech documentation momentarily, or sometime ideally before the next stream. Um, and and I always cache or I take these sessions and I have Twitch upload them to YouTube for archive. So go ahead and check that out. Again, link down below. And again, appreciate you guys tuning in. And I will see you next time. Have a good night and happy coding.